This is a guy. That pistol, he's a pistolero. Mexican street gang working for the cartels. The significance of this one, this guy, we thought he was dead. We found him, and he was barely breathing, face down in the sand. He'd collapsed. We rolled him over, poured water on him, and he came to a little bit. Poured 4 bottles of water down him. Called the Borstar unit of the Border Patrol. That's the guys that come out and put IVs in them and help resuscitate him and get him to a hospital. And they ran an IV on him for about an hour, and then he was able to come to, and they hauled him off. And after they left, we started scratching around in the dirt, and while they were had their heads turned, he buried his billfold. We found it. And it had a lot of important information. It had 21 contacts in it at statewide for smuggling contacts and other coyotes and stuff. He was a coyote, but he also had his deportation papers where he had been deported from Polk County, Texas. That's up in the piney woods of East Texas, from Livingston, Texas, 2 months prior. So he was smuggling, he was coming back in here. A lot of them do that. Yeah. They get deported and then they come back. Talking to the DPS about this one, they busted a marijuana growing farming operation in that national forest in Polk County, Texas, and raided it. I think they burned up 33,000 plants and caught these guys. You know, they put a drone over them and sneaked in there and caught them all. State did. Gotcha. Texas Rangers did. And that he was part of that operation. So, knowing the way things are now, he's probably back again. You know. Right. He probably did a little bit of time. Usually, when they're deported a couple of times and they're involved in a smuggling operation or drugs or something, they'll get 8 months in the penitentiary. We've had some like that. They were sneaking back in here. They put up a fight. I mean, they want to try to hurt you. Yeah. So we have to defend ourselves. But we've never shot anybody or anything, but we've come close.
How often do you have any of them that actually have a weapon on them?
Most of them, by the time they realize that they're fixing to get caught, they'll bury that weapon. But we find a lot of them, 25 calibers. You can go on our website. The Tangle Blast is one of the biggest gangs in Texas that work with the cartels. Houston's full of them. All these cities are full. They all carry a stiletto. It's like a spear point, razor sharp, so they stick somebody, you bleed to death. You know, they all carry those. We've taken those off of them.
Gotcha.
I, Douglas Ducote, an American patriot by the grace of God, do solemnly swear to support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America from enemies foreign and especially domestic.
Hello, American patriots. Welcome to the Douglas Ducote Show. We are back safely from the Mexico border after another successful trip to go down and come back to show you, the American people, exactly what is going on down there. We will be, over the next week and a half, because we got Thanksgiving coming up on us real quick, releasing all the videos. We're going to do them in segments so that they're shorter and more to the point of what you need to know and see from what we saw. I'm here to tell you that it was, this trip was kind of challenging. We saw some things that we didn't expect. We heard some things that I'm not quite sure any of us were ready for, but you're going to get to see it. You're going to get to witness exactly what we were able to see and experience. We had a great team with us. We have a great team, period, at Team Ducote, doing all the wonderful things to help us out so that we may do what is required to bring you the truth. Now, what I would like to start off by saying is that you may have noticed, and I've said this many times before, I find it very, very interesting that Fox News, for instance, will not have me on their show. But for anyone that follows my videos, it's very interesting that within 24 hours, sometimes less, of me putting out a video, one of Fox News's programs is going to go with the exact same story that I just talked about. Once or twice, okay. But for it to keep happening over and over again is very interesting. We haven't heard anything on the border since this impeachment stuff started. I go down there, I come back, I put out a video yesterday, and I'll be damned if all of a sudden Fox News isn't once again talking about the border. So I do believe that we're reaching a very big audience, and that's a good thing. I do know why Fox News has not had me on yet. Well, I'll take that back. They had me on once, but it was briefly, and it was when we were up in Washington, D.C. But as far as going on and being one of their, a host or being a guest on one of the shows, I'm not politically correct. And I don't think they believe that they can reel me in to the box that I need to be in for their higher ups. As far as the American people are concerned, I do believe that the majority of the American people would like people like me to be on the different networks, because we tell you the truth and we don't filter the shit. And every now and then we drop a bad word or two. Big freaking deal. It used to be that it was the liberals that had a problem with that and the Democrats that had a problem with that. But here recently, Fox News has been overtaken, and there's only a few programs left that I even care to watch anymore, because the rest of them are kind of picking up where CNN left off. I hope that changes. I really do. I hope that programs like Tucker and Hannity continue to stay on and continue to be able to bring you factual information. But the left has managed to wean out all the rest of them. I mean, pretty much. There's a few still left there besides those two I just mentioned. But anyhow, I just found it interesting that once again, I do a story on something and boom, all of a sudden it's in the news again. Except it's not me telling it to you unless you're watching it on the Douglas Ducote show or my videos. The show opened with Dr. Vickers, and I'm going to tell you more about him as well as the other people that were part of the mission, what we saw, some of the people we interviewed, and we're going to discuss a little bit more in depth about the immigration problem that we face. And I'm not talking about the little old lady that happens to come across with her granddaughter, which, oh, by the way, isn't happening. But we're going to go into a little more depth to explain to you exactly why this wall needs to be built and the horrors of what is going on that border. So hang on, we're going to be right back after this short break. You had mentioned to us back in April that you've also had some of your dogs that you had to protect your land. People coming across killed your dogs to get through?
They did. There was a pair, just dogs, brother and his sister. And they showed up one day and they went by the back door and laid down. I fed them. They stayed. They fell in love with the Border Patrol. They would go out with the Border Patrol and I'd lay in with them. And they would listen. And they would point out in which direction the wets were coming through. And they would bark. If somebody tried to get after the Border Patrol, those dogs would go absolutely nuts. We've ultimately, and the Border Patrol went, and those dogs were well fed. You know. I missed the dogs. I missed them for a couple of days. Said, okay, fine. It's a season, and they're out in the field somewhere. But as it came back, it was the fact when I was standing by the road, and there was this kid going through, and I recognized being one of the coyotes that was bringing people through. And he said that his boss in Matamoros had told him if he did not take care of those dogs and bring him his heads, that he'd get his head instead.
Wow.
The kid said he was leaving. He said he loved those dogs like they were his own dogs. He said that the dogs' heads were mounted in the boss's office in Matamoros.
It's horrible. It's just absolutely horrible.
Now, when my kids were young, I went out to the truck. I had some business to take care of, and outside we had this tree. And a dog that had wandered in. Old faithful dog, was older than me, and good watchdog, gentle with the kids, didn't bother anybody. I found the dog hanging upside down by his heels, alive. But he'd been skinned alive, and they had hung his hide right next to him, and he was still alive. I went into the house, I got a couple of things, I wrapped him up, wrapped it over the pistol, and I had to put him down.
Yeah.
I took him away and I buried him, and I lied to the girls, and I said, no, old Foot here, he just decided to go someplace else.
Yeah.
And I found out this is what they were doing to the neighborhood to keep the people shut up so they wouldn't talk. That I know of, they got 6 other dogs going back up the road towards town.
That is absolutely horrible. And that was Rusty Monsees. He's a former law enforcement officer, and he owns land that butts up to the Rio Grande. That was our second interview with Rusty. There will be more. He offered us his land to do night ops, and we did. We went out with MBGs. We had this conversation about what they did to his dogs. And for someone that is a big dog lover, I have many animals, as a lot of you know that follow me on Twitter or Facebook or even here on YouTube, because I'll post pictures every now and then of my fur babies. That was very, very disheartening. These cartel members have no soul. They have completely disregard human life. So you can imagine when it comes to animals, it's just like dirt to them. I will actually be going down probably right after Thanksgiving. I'll be seeing Rusty again, and I'll be down there for probably about 2 days on the border on this next trip. Just imagine just imagine, for those of you that have dogs, that, dogs do what they do. Somebody comes around at night, they bark. I mean, that's their thing. And then imagine somebody coming into your yard at night and skinning your dog alive for the sole purpose of shut your dog up, because we don't want it alerting people that we're in the area. Or, as he said, they chop off their heads and send it back to their boss, who mounts it on his wall in his office. That is just the very start of evil. That is just one story that stuck with us very, very hard. And Rusty has another dog there. Really nice lab mix that we kind of took a liking to. I went out and spent a little bit of money at Petco for the dog, which was, everybody kind of laughed at me because it was, why are you doing this? We're down here to, but after hearing that story, it blew me away, So I went out and bought the dog some toys and a new water bowl and food bowl and some bones. And it's a really cool dog. So on the human side of disgusting behavior of the cartel, we heard a story about a woman, a Hispanic woman, that refused to do what the cartel wanted her to do. And that was to continue to be a drug mule for them. She was forced to do several missions to come into America with drugs. She managed to pull it off. She didn't have a choice and decided she wasn't going to do it anymore. So they brought her into a yard of the building that they were operating out of. They set up a camera so it could be videotaped. And they slowly tortured her over a period of hours by first chopping off her hands, and then her feet, and then her legs and her arms, before deciding to end her misery and slit her throat. And then they shared that documentary that they made throughout Mexico to let everyone know that you will do as we tell you to do, or you will die a very slow and horrible death. The cartel is managed to basically take over Mexico. No one, and I mean no one, from Mexico, Central or South America, comes into the United States, makes that trip through the deserts until they manage to get to the Rio Grande or other parts more northern of the border, without the help of the cartel. Nothing comes across that border without the cartel approving it. They're even taking over farmers' ranches. For instance, avocados, if you like avocados, that's now being taken over by the cartel. If ranchers refuse to pay a percentage of what they're making selling their goods to America in the trade agreements, then they kill a member of their family to keep them in line, make sure that they don't stray too far in the wrong direction. They've managed to pay off the police, the military, many members of the government. Let's look at it like this. They are the largest drug trafficking organization on planet Earth and make billions. And in that, the trafficking of humans, the sex trafficking, they own the coyotes that help people come from Central and South America or Mexico that want to come across the border. And then after they do that, they're required, if they make it into America without getting caught, they're required to get a job and funnel money back to the cartel. Even if they're an innocent person, didn't have a felony conviction, never been in trouble with the law, they just can't find work, their family's starving, but they have to pay the cartel to get over here, for the coyotes to get them across into America. And then a percentage of what they make and send to their family goes to the cartel first. And if they don't pay up, they kill their family. Everything is ruled by the cartel. The current president ran on, I believe that we can slow down and stop the madness of the cartel by offering more jobs to our youth so they don't become members of the cartel. That was his plan. Let me tell you something, everyone. The cartel consists of former law enforcement officers, former military members, former politicians, people that have worked in the Mexican government for a very long time. And then they recruit the young kids, typically in families that have nothing, and they bring them on board. For those that resist, well, they go kill your mama. Now, if you want us to keep your dad alive or your sister or brother, you're going to work for us. So there's very little resistance. Every single day in Mexico, mostly in border towns, 300 to 400 people are slaughtered by the cartel. It's just the way of life over there now. We recently had Americans, as you all heard about it, that the cartel killed the wife, the children, even babies. And President Trump finally stepped up and said, we will offer military aid. The United States military will come into Mexico and take these bastards out, because we know who they are and we know where they live. We know where they operate out of. And Mexico turned the president down. So President Trump has now decided that he will declare the cartel a terrorist organization. That way, it does give America more, I guess, leeway to take some type of action in the future. There are other organizations, I believe, that also need to be in that category, such as, well, I don't know, let's say Antifa. And maybe that will come. Many of us have been pushing for that. At the beginning of the show, you saw Dr. Vickers. Dr. Vickers took us on his land, drove us around, showed us a lot of things that we weren't ready for. Showed us an area where just the day before, people were trying to cut across his property. Here's what happens that a lot of people don't understand how this even works. Once you pay off or pay a certain amount of money to the cartel to get you over here, then they turn you over to coyotes. The coyotes get together a group of people. They're wanting to come over. Men, women, boys, girls, babies. And there's a group that's responsible for getting you to the border with instructions from that point, what you're to do once you get across. Now, if you manage to get that far and you don't drown in the river or get bit by a snake, because there are rattlesnakes everywhere out there, or some other wild animal, well, now you have to obviously work your way north. Every major highway going off that border, anywhere from 30 to even 70 miles up, has an actual border checkpoint that you have to go through. If you came across with a car across the border, you're still going to have to go through this checkpoint in order to continue on in America. And that's to make sure you didn't pick anyone up along the way. You know, somebody that the cartel got across and now they're going to hitchhike or whatever. Well, and that's exactly what happens. Once they manage to get past the Border Patrol, they've gotten across the river or cross wherever in the northern part of the border. Now they rendezvous with someone that will now pick them up, another coyote, and drive them up that highway. And when they get a few miles out from that checkpoint, they let them out. And they tell them to go so far off the road and keep walking until they get past that checkpoint. And then they will pick them up on the other side. They drive through the checkpoint. Border Patrol can look. They don't see anything in their vehicle. They've got the proper documentation to get across, continue on, and they do. And after they get a few miles up the road, they pull over and wait to pick up those people and continue their journey. And most of it goes over to Houston, Texas. And then they just get sent out from there. Along the way, there are different safe houses where they will store them for short periods of time until it's right to make this move. But here's the catch. A human only has the strength to carry so much food and water on your body in backpacks. Now you can imagine, if you're a kid, that's very little. If you're a woman, that's very little, unless you happen to be some kind of athlete. Hell, even if you're a guy, that's very little. I couldn't make that trip. I've seen what it takes. I've watched it. Hell, I even watched people off the side of the highway with backpacks trucking across a field trying to get up there past that point. Along the way, they come across Dr. Vickers' land. By the time they've managed to get that far, They have physically been walking in whatever the elements of the weather are for days. And when they get to certain areas where there should have been food or water left for them, if it didn't make it, then they're shit out of luck. And eventually the body wears out and you can't go anymore. And you lay down and you die. In the county we were in since 2009, they have recovered over 700 dead bodies of people that just ran out of food and water trying to follow the little script that the cartel laid out as to how you're going to get into America. And on paper, it looks fairly easy until you get out there and see the elements. That's one county. You know how many counties border Mexico all the way from Brownsville, Texas to San Diego? One county in Texas, over 700 dead bodies of those that wanted to come to America that were not typically a member of the drug cartel or sex trafficking. They were human trafficking. They paid to get here and they didn't make it. It's estimated that double that amount have not been found because within 48 hours, typically, the wildlife has distributed the remains. Every now and then, they find a bone, or in one case, at Dr. Vickers' ranch, they were all sitting around their main little hub area that they meet at, and up comes one of their dogs with a skull in its mouth, holding on to two of his teeth, a human skull that it had found. Dr. Vickers has an organization he's part of called the Border Volunteers Militia. And they get together often and go out on his land to try and find out what's out there. If they come across someone that is in dire straits, they're dehydrated, there's no food and water, they get them food and water and first aid while they're waiting on the Border Patrol to come and pick them up and take them to the hospital or whatever they have to do to keep them alive. These men and women volunteer their time to do that. And they're just one of many militia groups out there, 3%ers, for instance, that they're saving more lives than they're actually anything else. I mean, literally, they're like the guardian angels for some of these folks because there's nothing else out there but wide open space and horrible brush and animals that are waiting to get you. I'm going to read a couple of things for you that are of very good interest. Think the cartel does not affect you because you don't live on the border. Over 10,700 Americans have died due to violence from the cartel. We're talking about someone just looking the wrong way at one of them and they pull out a gun and shoot you. Or in the process of robbing you or breaking into your home, they kill you. We've met with several of these, we call them angel families. These are people that have lost loved ones, sons, daughters, fathers, mothers, to a senseless act from a person that should have never been here in the first place. And most of the time, when they get caught from doing the murder, we find out they'd already been deported 3, 4, 5 times, 7 times, and still managed to get back over here. To get behind the wheel of a car, drinking and driving, get in a car crash, and American dies. $42,000 plus have recently died due to drug overdose. Where do the drugs come from? South of the border. Who got them here? The cartel. It's estimated that over 200,000 plus Americans have died from drugs brought across that border by the cartel. You know, the border that the Democrats and liberals do not want a wall built on. Over 1,000 plus Americans have died due to infectious diseases because of what's happening. These people don't have shots like we do. They don't get immunizations. It doesn't exist for them, especially those in areas of Central and South America where the biggest problem they have is malaria, typically. But by the time they trekked across Central and South America and through Mexico, they've got all kinds of stuff. And then we have Americans being exposed to it. At any given time, there's several thousand Americans seeking medical attention due to these same diseases that are being spread across our country. Approximately 15,000 plus Americans have died due to illegals, drunk driving, murder, and assault recently. Approximately 5,000 women in just the past few years have been raped by illegal immigrants. Each year in America, 45,000 Americans die due to heroin and coke, meth, fentanyl. There's an article that I'm not going to read to you. I'd like you to go check it out. Please look it up. So the Louisville Courier-Journal, and it was posted on November 24th, so just 2 days ago. The author of the article is Richard A. Green. And the Louisville Courier is out of Kentucky. They're doing an article on the drug cartel and how it is affecting Kentucky. That's not quite near the Rio Grande, is it? Or the border of Mexico. And that's just Kentucky. Every state in America has been affected by the drugs coming across and by the sex trafficking and by murder, rape, and assaults. I've come up with a new name for those of you who didn't get a chance to watch yesterday's video when I first got back. Come up with a new name for the Democrats and the liberals. And I did this based off of what is it that the cartel represents? What do they want here in America? Well, they want sanctuary cities. The Democrats are all for that. They want ICE dismantled. Democrats are 100% on board with that. They want the Border Patrol dismantled. There you go. Democrats, they're preaching. Hell, all the people that are running for president on the Democrat side right now, these are their talking points. They want wide open borders. They want illegal immigrants to be able to come at any given time across that border. They want health care for illegal immigrants. They want welfare for illegal immigrants. They want American companies to hire illegal immigrants. They want Americans to help set up checkpoints along the border and north of the border with food and water for the coyotes that are running drugs, the sex trafficking, and the illegal immigrants that are crossing. So they will make it. They want you to continue to vacation in Mexico and take cruises to Mexico. You know, those cruise ships that do ports in, I don't know, Cozumel, places like that. Because they're on a take for part of the money. And it helps with their violence. They are against deportations. They don't want them kicked back. They want you to continue to come across the border and buy their illegal drugs. And buy their illegal drugs from the drug mules. Hell, there are members of the Democrat Party right now calling to make all drugs legalized. Pretty damn interesting, isn't it? That's what the cartel wants. Cartel would like illegal immigrants to be able to get driver's license. So if they do get stopped going and coming, they at least have a driver's license. Maybe that'll get them through. And of course, the cartel wants attorneys here in America to be immigration attorneys. So if some of their people get caught, they can get them off. They want banks in America to help them with their money. And there are banks in America that are doing just that. And the Democrats, well, they control the House and they're not doing shit about it. Remember all the banking issues we've had in the past? Dr. Corsi, exposed in the past, wrote a book about it. Those banks and their drug cartel money. So here's what we do from this point on. When you refer to a Democrat or a liberal who obviously want the exact same things as the Mexican cartel, then that means they support the Mexican cartel. And if they support the Mexican cartel, they are cartel. That's right. Every damn Democrat that supports open borders, illegal immigration, not putting up the wall, wanting to dismantle our law enforcement on the border, and all the list of shit that I just read to you here, is a cartel member. Card carrying. AOC, Alejandro Omar, you're cartel. Nancy Pelosi, you're the leader of the American cartel. Every one of those Democrats that are running right now on the Democrat side to become the next president of the United States, Cory Booker, Kamala Harris, Joe Biden, Bernie Sanders, they all want all of this shit that I just mentioned. Free health care for illegal immigrants, free housing, driver's license, wide open borders, disassembling law enforcement, getting rid of ICE. They're all cartel. Every damn one of them. So that's what we start calling them from here on out. The cartel is killing Americans, either by the drug trade or by the gun. I've spoken to some of those angel families. And the pain and the suffering that they go through, knowing that this country's not doing shit to stop what's happening and what's happened to their loved one. It's in their eyes, it's in their face. And I wish there was a way to say it's going to be fixed tomorrow. Or we got this. In a year, it's all done. No one else is going to die. We can stop the cartel. I wish I could say that to them. But when the other party, the Democrats and the liberals of America, are the cartel, what do you say? What do you say? We can only keep pushing and hoping and praying that the Republicans do the right thing the next time they have the House back and control. Think about this. The Republicans held 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, the House, and the Senate. And what did they do to stop this shit? Paul Ryan? As far as I'm concerned, even Republicans that didn't do shit or say anything or speak up besides a photo op of an angel family, you're the frickin' cartel. It is very disturbing, disheartening, and I'm going to do everything in my power to continue to expose this shit. I don't want another family to go through what some of the families I've met so far have had to deal with. It's bad enough that an illegal immigrant killed your child for no reason at all, other than they were just there, or gave your child horrible narcotics that killed them, or were drunk behind a wheel and hit your child in a car. Bad enough that the cartel was responsible for the death of your child. But then you find out that the Democrat Party wants to allow everything to happen in America that the drug cartel represents. That's hard to take. To know that one political party in America doesn't give two shits about you and the loss of your child. Or that your dog was skinned alive on the border. Or that somebody had their arms, feet, legs chopped off. Or that, right across the border in Matamoros, there happens to be a daycare center that some Muslims that were in the group coming across went into and took babies out of the daycare by their legs and beat them up against the wall like they were beating out a rug and killed them. or that the cartel walked into a Christian church during Mass and shot the priest in the head to prove a point that it's not welcome here. But yet these same sick bastards, they pray more than most Americans do. They really believe that their God is going to protect them so they can continue to do this shit. It's just like ISIS terrorists. They'll believe Allah wants them to do this. Well, the cartel is the ISIS terrorist on steroids right here. More people are dying every year in America that's directly related to the cartel that have died in wars that we have been in the past 50 damn years. And we haven't done shit to stop it. Every time we try, the Democrats fight back. They won't give us the money to do it. They won't give us the personnel to do it. They won't give us the equipment to do it. They want the votes. They want to be on the take. We're going to take a short break, and when I come back, we will close out this segment of the Douglas Ducote Show. So hang on, and I'll be right back.
I'm Benny Martinez, Berks County Sheriff. I said the county seat is the city of Alforjas. I'm 70 miles north of the river. What we have here is a very unique situation where we're kind of like the hub as far as the last line of defense. As you get the narcotics, as you get the people, either from the Brownsville area all the way down to the Starr County, Zapata area, and they all filter into Berks County. And a lot of it has to do just because of the way the formation is to transport him up north. Our checkpoint, one of the largest checkpoints in the Southwest Corridor, the busiest. Then what they'll do, they'll get dropped off prior to the checkpoint where they're doing narcotics, backpacking, or people. So they circumvent the checkpoint. And while they're doing that, this is where you have these folks that are laid up in stash houses where they're already coming up injured, denied the elements that they need as far as the food, water, etc. So they die, so we recover them. Then you have your gangs that come in from Houston, that what I refer to as transportation cells, pick them up and transport them back to Houston. From Houston, then they'll go into other cities, whether it be I would say the East Coast, the Midwest, or back west, back towards the California area, Colorado. So this is the hub. 944 square miles. I have technically 5 deputies that just handles all this issue. I have my colleagues that are 6-7 hours from here, and they're having the same issues. So unless we really create something to stop this issue, control this border a lot better than we're doing, it's going to continue. That's kind of like in a nutshell what we go through here on a daily basis. A good percentage of it is migration issues. And we've gotten used to it in terms of what to do, what not to do. So another issue they need to work on is just, the resources. We don't have the resources to accommodate all that occurs on a daily basis, on a spontaneous basis, because that's what we go through on this in Berks County.
And then just another quick thing, based on stuff that you've encountered, people you've talked to when you make arrests. So you say, from what you know, you call them transportation cells, or the transportation arm comes down from Houston. Mm-hmm. So anyone that's coming in that way, whether it's human trafficking or they're trafficking drugs, that's then being stashed in safe houses. Mm-hmm. You said some that are being human trafficked, there's payments or things that have to be made. Now, nobody coming from, say, South America or even these countries around the world has $10,000 or $50,000 cash to pay along the way. What are a lot of these people almost in the sense indentured servants? They're going to owe something to a gang, to the cartel, to...
Yes, and what occurs is that once they're stashed in a home down along the border, they're kept there until funds start arriving, so they can get that particular criminal gangs to get their monies before they're filtered up north to my area. And then from here, when they get to Houston, they're held up again, so they can get the rest of the monies. So they're being held for labor. They're being held for whatever is the necessity that particular gang needs them to do. So either they're going to go work for them, or they're going to go prostitute, whatever the case might be. It all depends on the actual criminal group that holds them at bay.
And then I know you wouldn't necessarily have border numbers, but do you know, in what you've come across, are the majority of people that are coming in that are being handled by traffickers, by the cartels, by the professionals, versus, say, some guy or a family decides to just flee their home in Guatemala and make a trek up here? I mean, are there a lot of those, or is that kind of can't really happen with the cartel controlling all these areas in Mexico, and people have to be able to pass through those areas to get to our border?
Well, the issue that's occurring here is the fact that there's a lot of those type of families that are trying to leave their countries because of a bad way of living, but they're getting tangled up into the criminal aspect of it, just because the cartels run the whole show. So unless we start making things correct along the border where they can come across the way they should through the port of entry, then things will be better for them. They have a better lifestyle. They don't have to go through all these other issues that's going to endanger them, endanger the child, or anyone else is with them.
Okay, so just by the nature of the beast, if you were someone who wanted to flee, that had no intentions of necessarily coming here to do bad, chances are somewhere along that path you're going to have to make a deal with somebody to be able to cross it.
That is correct. Just the fact that they get blanketed in, it's just a big old blanket and everyone is involved with it, so that's going to be a big issue for them.
Okay, and then just straight on one more, and then the last thing is, as you mentioned earlier in the interview, you think as far as the border is concerned, you endorse, more physical barrier, technological barrier, and then more manpower, whether that be a new agency or National Guard or something with rapid response teams that could help local law enforcement and help Border Patrol.
Yes, and along with those barriers, you will need those response teams to appear. You're going to need those boots on the ground. You're going to need all that implemented simultaneously, because that's what it's going to entail. As soon as you hear something go off, as soon as the camera picks something up, you definitely need the human element to go look at it, what's coming across or what they're looking at. It's just going to confirm what you're looking in the camera.
That was Brooks County, Texas Sheriff Benny Martinez. We spent, probably a good hour with him while we were there. That's one of the videos that will be coming out over the next week and a half, as well as the one with Dr. Vickers, with Rusty, we interviewed the Vice President of National Border Patrol Council, Chris Cabria, which many of y'all have seen on Fox News. These are all very fine, outstanding American patriots that are doing the best they can to try and help slow this basically bleed down, because that's what it is. A few things I want to share with you that are currently happening in the news as far as this is concerned. The border. Deputies in upstate South Carolina say they've broken up a methamphetamine pipeline from Mexico all the way to South Carolina, with arrests in Greensville and Birmingham, Alabama. Greenville County investigators arrested Johanna Ruiz and Juan Carlos Beccaria. The sheriff's office accused the two men of moving large amounts of methamphetamines into Alabama and South Carolina. Deputies seized 6 pounds of meth from a house in Greenville, along with $7,500 and cocaine. all brought in by the Mexican cartel. Senators Ben Sasse and Mike Lee sent a letter to the FBI, Secretary of State, and Secretary of Treasury asking them to implement sanctions against Mexico drug cartel following the murder of the Americans of the cartel recently, which we just talked about. Mexican cartels slaughtered 9 Americans, including babies. Nebraska Republican says in a statement on Monday, the administration ought to use every legal avenue to bring these butchers to justice. Sanctions are to be the first step in a coordinated effort to wage a smart, full-scale offensive against the cartel and gangs that are terrorizing our southern border. Although it's not just the southern border, they're terrorizing this entire freaking country. This attack has removed any doubt that the violence south of the border is contained. It's not. Lee said. A Utah colleague added, Mexico is leading dangerously towards becoming a failed country. The cartel and gangs must know that the United States will respond to ensure that they do not continue to threaten the American people. Now, that all sounds good. Wonderful talking points. What are you going to do? What's the president to do? Right now, currently, he's taken some money from the national defense to build concrete walls that are high and wide. The walls that are being built right now, by the time it's finished, if it ever did get finished, and it won't. Why? Because even if President Trump gets reelected in 2020, you better look at 15, 20 years down the road before they could ever get this tight wall done, completed. And you don't think a Democrat president is going to come along between now and then and stop it from continuing to be built? There is not a snowball's chance in hell that at the current rate, the border wall that is being built will be completed. Not by 2020, not anytime soon, which means that more Americans will die. So, we've come up here at Team Ducote with a 2-part solution that will work. And we need you to contact your members of Congress and the White House. If you didn't know it, you can call the White House. There's a switchboard. Look it up. 2 things. Number 1, the Terrablock system is a rapid deployment system that not only can be completely finished the rest of the border complete with a wall, but can do it before the election in 2020 and at only $1 billion. That, my friends, is a no-brainer for anyone. Continue what we're doing, which will cost billions, if not $1 trillion by the time they finally reach the ocean of the Gulf of Mexico. Or deploy the Terrablock system, which can be done within a year for under $1 billion. Does this require any freaking thought? No. You don't know what the Terrablock system is? Look at some of my videos where we've already discussed it. Google it. Look it up. It's a rapid deployed wall system that you can't drive a truck through. You can't climb it. It's already put together. They just run it out of a Connex as the truck goes by, hook them together, fill them up with dirt in the areas that will hold and support it to the ground, put in a PID system which then identifies anyone that comes up and touches it, that will know exactly where that location is at. In the meantime, while we are deploying this system, why is the National Guard not down on the border on active duty orders in the thousands? That's the next thing that President Trump needs to do. All these states that told him to go screw himself because they are run by Democrat governors, and we're not sending our people down there. All President Trump has to do is activate them on federal orders, just like he would do if he sent them to Afghanistan or anywhere else. Oh, and when they get to Afghanistan or Iraq, guess what their compound's secured by? The Terrablock system. If we can deploy it to protect U.S. forces overseas, why aren't we deploying the same system on our border along with National Guard? What prouder? There is nothing that can make a National Guard soldier prouder than to know that their deployment is on American soil, protecting Americans from the death of the cartel. Think about that for a moment. Instead of the National Guard being deployed all over the frickin' world fighting somebody else's damn war and protecting their borders. I saw a few National Guard people down there. I think the president deployed 2,000 of them. Most of those are in support roles. Everyone we talked to with the Border Patrol, with the local sheriff's departments, they all said the same thing. Where is the National Guard? Why are they not down here augmenting our Border Patrol and our sheriff's departments that don't have enough people to hire to do this? If your sheriff's department is spending over 50% of their time with illegal immigration issues, they sure as hell aren't responding and able to respond to the citizens that they're supposed to serve and protect. It is so bad in Brooks County that a deputy out on patrol that runs into a problem, guess who they have to call for backup? The Border Patrol. That's their nearest backup. Any other agency that's got 20, 30, 40 officers out on the street, all those officers respond. And other agencies respond. But that's not how it is there, because the nearest agency is a long ways off. And luckily, the Border Patrol doesn't have a problem with this whatsoever, because they're brothers too, and sisters. It's a law enforcement family. And that's what we do. We support each other. So we need a Terrablock system ASAP. And we need a National Guard ASAP. There's not a single reason why every damn military police unit in the National Guard here in America is not rotating down to our border to help our border agents that are just spread so thin that it's sickening. And then with this Terrablock system in place and the PID system in place, then you can back off on the amount of National Guard soldiers you have and just have certain teams that will respond to those areas where somebody has been identified as trying to get through or over or around the wall. I'm going to bring my producer on, Dustin Go, for a few minutes before we close out the show. Dustin, how are you, brother?
Wonderful, Doug. Great show. Look, I've been watching the chat, very active. I'm glad you guys are following along. Just a couple things I want to address and clarify for you on the solution that we have. So there's no misconceptions, and everyone understands what we are advocating for. And so far, with our discussions with the Border Patrol Union, with Sheriff Martinez, who's going to now loop us in with the Texas Sheriff's Association, so we're going to be able to present this solution, which we're still refining. But everyone keeps asking about, can you dig under the Terrablock system? Yes, you can dig under the Terrablock system. But we are looking at this as an immediate, I am at least, immediate temporary solution for a physical barrier that can be rapidly deployed. It is also coupled with...
You can also dig under the current wall being built.
Yeah, well, and what we saw in Brownsville, so there's no confusion here, the majority of any type of slats or wall in Brownsville was built under the Bush administration. We looked that up, we got it confirmed. You can scale those things pretty easy. They're about 12 to 16 feet tall. But here's the thing with Terrablock. We need to plug this hole immediately. I'm going to get into something that I've been involved with this issue since 2006, but this was the most enlightening journey I ever had over the few days, because I got to see and talk to people who live down on the border and see the terrain myself. The first thing is that, at least where we were, in about the 1 to 1.5 hour area we covered, from Boca Chica, which is where the Rio Grande dumps into the Gulf, all the way to McAllen, which is where the Border Patrol Union is based, that there's no natural barrier. And I'm going to be more blunt. When President Trump tells you there's a natural barrier stopping him, there's not a natural barrier. The Rio Grande, if anyone has not seen it, is essentially a puddle. There's no rapid, rolling white caps flowing through there. And we confirmed with Border Patrol in the areas we were in that you could literally walk across it. So you come down an embankment, not very steep, you walk across, you walk up an embankment, and in one area you're going to see this video. Doug and I and Mike, who was with us, covered this extensively. There's University of Texas, Brownsville. The backyard is the Rio Grande. We found pieces of clothing that were dropped off there, like a bathing suit, and plastic bags all over the place. So what they're doing is they're putting their clothes in a bag, they're walking across in a bathing suit, throwing that in the bushes, ripping open their bag, putting on their clothes, and they disappear right onto the college campus. And we confirmed this with the Border Patrol Union, that a couple of years ago there was actually a cartel gun battle across the Rio Grande, and shots were fired into the campus, and they had to evacuate the campus. So with Terrablock, yes, people could dig under it. Now, how long does it take you to dig a tunnel under it? Well, if you go look at the terrain, it's not that easy, number one. Number two, we've been talking about the PID, the Perimeter Intrusion Detection Technology System, which the Terrablock system has built into it the ability to run fiber optic cable. So any type of vibration, climbing, and again, in this system, there is an actual tight barbed wire coil at the top. Now, anything can be scaled and anything can be dug under, but with the smart technology system, and look, we were in areas in this campus where there weren't even cameras. And Mike, who was with us, knows a lot about security. One of the things he did in his career was actually securing military bases and building entrance-exit systems for them. And he was scouting out the cameras and pointing to me all the places where you couldn't be detected. So this is why we also want the National Guard armed under federal command, under the President of the United States, stationed. If you saw this, it can be done, stationed every mile. So someone starts to dig, someone starts to climb, a team of National Guard are sent over to that area. Look at your home security systems now you could buy for $300. Cameras in your house, and you can watch them on your iPhone anywhere you are. So the National Guard, the Border Patrol, could have a phone in their pocket, and they could go, oh, there we go, we see a guy, he's crawling, let's get over there. And the scary part is we met some Border Patrol people that were on their shifts that we talked to off the record because we didn't want to film them while they're on their shifts. You got a lot of young people. We heard that in Brooks County, the Dr. Vickers, who you saw earlier, who runs the Texas Border Volunteer Militia to patrol his property and other farms' property, he lends the Border Patrol guys night vision because they don't even have night vision. And when we went out on the farm this night down on the Rio Grande, Mike had night vision. You need night vision. I mean, there were times, even Doug and I, you've got to get close to this high, dry brush to look down the embankment into the Rio Grande, and you literally are thinking in the dark that someone's going to jump out of the bushes and knife you, because you can't see anything unless you have night vision. So is it the perfect solution? No, but what we're advocating for is plugging the hole immediately. And the truth of the matter, and I know people don't like to hear it, but these are Customs and Border Patrol numbers that were released a couple of weeks ago. There were 1,350 miles that had no barrier when Donald Trump took office. There is nothing on those 1,350 miles today. Nothing. 650 miles had a combination of roadblocks, some slats, some of this George W. Bush barrier that we saw. Trump has only replaced between 78 and 81 miles of the replacement barrier. So nothing is set to go up in the 1,350 miles. And I see the audience saying to us, oh, just wait, when 2020 comes after the election, then he's going to do it, then he's going to do it. Look, that's bullshit. It's bullshit. I've been hearing this since 2006 when I got involved, went back, did my research going all the way back to the 80s under Ronald Reagan when he signed the amnesty and trade for a wall, followed it through George W. Bush when he got a bill passed for wall, but then they didn't fund the wall. And now the wall, the 78 miles that's built right now, was actually built under a bill that was passed under Barack Obama, not even under President Trump. So we have to stop with this nonsense of allowing, I don't care if it's the Republicans, it's Democrats, or President Trump, to kick the can down the road. Listen to me. Donald Trump, as all you believe, there's a coup, they want to kill him, they tried to poison him last week. So you're going to take a gamble today that he's going to win the election, not be killed, not be impeached. The guy could trip and fall down the stairs tomorrow and hit his head and it's all over. We need to hold his feet to the fire today. And that's why with this show, it's a combination of a show, an investigative team, and a solutions-based advocacy group. We're organizing angel parents and law enforcement and others to get behind this. It needs to be done now. No excuses from President Trump. It's just been announced that he put his son-in-law, Jared Kushner, in charge of the border now. And he put him in charge of marketing. They're going to put up some cameras where they're building replacement fence and stream it so everyone thinks that it's being built. This is nonsense. It's ridiculous. People like Sheriff Joe Arpaio, who's been fighting this for years, should be in the White House right now. People like Doug should be in there advising the president. People like Mike that we were with should be advising the president. People like Sheriff Martinez should be advising the president. I'm telling you, when you're down there and you're hearing landowners, it's a regular frickin' life. These guys on the border, you say, oh my God, how could the guy leave his dog outside? Look, part of the ranch lifestyle is you have hounds. They're like junkyard dogs. You leave them outside. They bark when people come on your property. They keep the small animals away. That's the lifestyle. And why would you blame the victim? He is the victim. The dog is the victim. And they are victims of the cartel, but really they're victims of the United States government who has refused to defend our country, to seal our border, to put our National Guard down there. And you wouldn't understand unless you're down there and you see the culture. People there call south of San Antonio North Mexico. If you saw it, you would understand what we're talking about. And the issue is that, just like when we talk about Sharia law cannot coexist with constitutional law, there are certain cultures that cannot blend together. And what I'm hearing is down in Mexico, down in South America, the cartel leaders are like Snoop Dogg here, or Jay-Z here, or Puff Daddy here, or Kanye here. They actually roll around dressed as like fashion models, girls in bikinis. They get the pop culture singers to write songs about them. They treat them like they're Robin Hood, like the way that Bonnie and Clyde were treated. So they're lifted up, and the people that grow up in Mexico, remember, they're desensitized to this. I've read article after article of testimonials from people from down there. From the age of 2 and 3 years old, you're going out to the market with your parents, and you see heads on pikes. So they're desensitized to this. So part of the issue down there that we discovered is really three things. One is the culture down there on the border doesn't really say anything about this. They're not going to turn people in. It's part of their culture. Number two, you have threats. So people like Rusty that you saw, they are being threatened by the cartel. They will kill their families. We heard a story, they burned somebody's house down to send them a warning. And then on top of it, you have corruption. And some of the law enforcement off the record said to us, you know, yes, it's very corrupt. So there are people on the take all the way from the border to Washington, D.C. They are on the take from the cartel. And if there are Republicans not on the take, but they are too much of a wimp to go down to the border like we did, spend time with the families, spend time with the law enforcement. 70 miles from the border, you got a rancher, Dr. Vickers, has to find dead bodies all over his property. Think about this, folks. Wherever you live right now, if you're in an apartment, a condo, a home, a farm, just imagine walking out your front door every day with your kids or your grandkids and you find a half-eaten body on your front porch. That's what these people have to deal with. This is in the United States of America. And then that spreads. They traffic them up to Houston. And from Houston, they push them out all over. And as Sheriff Martinez confirmed, and Border Patrol confirmed, there isn't a family coming over the border that hasn't had to cut a deal with the cartel. So remember this. The cartel charges you whatever it's going to be. $10,000, $25,000, $50,000, depending on where you're coming from. And we know they're coming from all over the world now. Africa, Iran, all over the Middle East. You make a deal with them, okay? They own you. All of you have watched Italian mob movies. We've glorified that too. So you make a deal with the cartel for 10 grand. You come in here, okay? Either you're going to be forced to be a prostitute, to pimp your sister, to run drugs, to become a trafficker and drive cars for these people, to run safe houses for them. And every dollar you end up making, you're kicking your commission back to the cartel to pay off your debt to them for sneaking you into the United States. So remember, you know, if you got Ramos over there mowing your lawn to save yourself a couple of bucks, that $20 you're paying him, $10 is getting kicked back to the cartel. You're a member of the cartel. This needs to stop. You need to walk into banks that have everything written in bilingual pamphlets and say to them, you are a member of the cartel, I'm closing my bank account. You need to see, when you see restaurants, you tell these people. You don't get violent. You tell them you're a member of the cartel. I'm never eating at your restaurant again. I'm going on Yelp. I'm going on Google, and I'm leaving a review. This is the only way this is going to stop. We need to knock it off with saying that Donald Trump, he's going to do all this great stuff after 2020. Oh, after 2020, the indictments are going to come. After 2020, Hillary's going to get locked up. After 2020, we're going to build a wall. That's nonsense. The Republicans already proved to you with the House and Senate in the first 2 years, they're not going to give a dime to do this. The only way this gets accomplished, the only way, is that we drive this solution right up to 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. We demand a meeting with Jared Kushner and with Stephen Miller, his senior advisor, and with Ken Cuccinelli, the immigration czar, and we look the president in the eyes and we say, where's promises made, promises kept? These are the angel families that you trotted around with you and put on the stage during the election. These are the angel families that you bring out to the rallies. These are the military guys and the veterans and the law enforcement you say you love. It's a hellhole. It's a frickin' war in the United States. And right now, Mr. President, promises made, promises kept, sign an executive order, use the DOD funds that you already allocated, and you get the Terrablock system up, you put the National Guard on the border, and then we'll get behind you for the next 4 years to help you start replacing Terrablock with a 35-foot tall concrete wall that goes 100 feet underground. We don't stop with Terrablock. Terrablock is just a temporary solution to plug this goddamn hole right now before more Americans get killed. This is despicable what is going on. You should be angry, and you should drive your anger right to Pennsylvania Avenue and tell the President of the United States, do your job, do what you promised, and save the American lives. Enough of this nonsense that Mexico is helping seal the south of the border. We're not merged with Mexico. We want our border secured right now. That is what we need to do. I'm sick and tired of it. I swear to God, if you guys have any extra money, Go down there and see this yourself. When we go back next time, come with us. Any politician who's got the balls to come needs to come. Come out and hang out on a farm. Stand next to the brush, next to the Rio Grande, and just imagine some guy could jump out of that bush and stick you with a stiletto and you bleed to death right there. Because these people deal with it every single day. And our government knows it, our politicians know it, and our president knows it. And if they don't, they should step the fuck down because they're worthless. They are worthless if they don't have the balls to fight this, or if they don't know it, then what are they doing in Washington? Because if I was a U.S. congressman and I found out about this, and I heard about these dead bodies 70 miles from the border, I swear to God it doesn't matter what I ran on, I would drop everything on my plate. And I would say for the rest of my career, I don't care if I get voted out of office, I'm going to sign bill after bill after bill I'm putting forward to seal this border. That's the only thing they should be focused on. This is such a pressing matter in our country right now. To be honest with you, this is probably the most important thing that can happen in our country since Thomas Jefferson drafted the Declaration of Independence. Our country needs to be secured, and if these guys aren't going to do it, they need to step down because they're a bunch of cowards and they could go home and do something else and make room for good people to run. And I encourage all of you that listen, you ask what to do, stand up and run for office. Go find good people to run for office, get behind them, help them. Donate to things like what we're doing because we need to get back out to the border and keep telling these stories. Over the next 7 days, we're going to release 7 different videos. All the extra footage will be at DouglasDucote.com because some of the stuff we can't put on YouTube and some of it is really long. It's not for a YouTube audience, but you'll be able to see all the interviews completely uncut and unfiltered because we want to be transparent, but we're also going to edit them down so they're more palatable and you can share them with your friends. But I'm telling you guys, when this solution is ready, we need the meeting at the White House. We have to have the meeting at the White House. Doug needs to be able to go in there with Dan Golvach, Angel Dad, and they need to look the president in the eyes and say, sir, you need to keep this promise. We are here to support you. We will get this done for you. And God, what the hell are you doing putting Jared Kushner in charge of this? And I just want to show this real quick before Doug goes. It's 1 minute. I want to show you guys something, and there'll be a video on this explaining it and showing you the map. But we went down into Boca Chica State Park, drove for miles upon miles past Elon Musk's spaceships and all the stuff that's down there. And if you think the border wall is going up magically, I got news for you. There's an area. I looked down the beach. On the other end of the beach, the Rio Grande comes into the Gulf. I got drone footage of this as well, which will be in the final piece. You can literally walk a half mile upstream, cross the Rio Grande, where the water isn't, literally walk across, come down, walk up the beach. Welcome to the United States of America. There's no wall. It's bullshit. So let me play that real quick, and I'll go back to Doug so he can close out. All right, look. This is the U.S. side. The beach here. We're down in the southeastern part of this tip. Over here is Mexico. So you can literally just walk across the beach into the United States. There is no wall system or anything. You can come right up here and now coming across all these lands up there you'll see SpaceX Elon Musk rocket ship program, but you would think, well, you're illegal, you know, you can go off into these fields. I mean, it's flat, a lot of cactus and stuff like that, but the Border Patrol doesn't know what an illegal looks like, because it can be anything. So there's a lot of people, there was a real lot of people out here before, and could literally get picked up right here and drive up to, there's a checkpoint about 10 miles up on this road, but you could hop out a couple miles before the checkpoint and literally make a break for it in the more dry brush. So it's completely unprotected. No wall, no barrier, no Border Patrol, no Coast Guard.
Well, you just thought Douglas Ducote got pissed off when he does his videos. my producer, Dustin Gold, has been hanging around me too long because it's wearing off. I'm going to send him some of my blood pressure pills that I have to take on a regular basis. You know, I laugh about this, folks, but look, it's serious. It's dead serious. We want to see President Trump get elected in 2020. But God help us if he doesn't. And I'm very concerned that a lot of the people that voted for him the last go around, because this wall isn't getting finished, is not going to be on board. I've heard too many people say, my number one thing was that wall. And we don't have shit. So we're very, very concerned about it. I would like to thank Dan Golvich. I had the ultimate honor of meeting him recently and shaking his hand and giving him a hug. He lost his son to an illegal immigrant that shot him in the head for no reason at all. He was just there in his vehicle, minding his own business. And Maria Espinoza, who's the founder of the Remembrance Project. She's also a candidate running for Congress in Texas, District 7. The two of them were very instrumental in helping us with this border trip and allowing us to use some of their contacts for some of the interviews we were able to do and the people we were able to meet. Dan and Maria are great American patriots. To those that we were able to interview that gave us your time, in some cases your land, shared your precious time with us and your stories, which you will see coming out over the next 7 days. Brooks County, Texas Sheriff Benny Martinez, Dr. Vickers, Rusty Monsi, and Chris Cabarilla. Thank you guys very much for allowing us to come into your time and for sharing with us so we can then share it with America, what's really going down on that border. And folks, like I say, over the next 7 days, these videos will be out. We've got them all ready now. We can't put them all out at once, obviously, but we'll put them out each day, and you will be able to see exactly what we saw and the conversations we had with the people that are down there doing the job and are living there. And it's very, very shocking what you're going to hear. A few of it will only be able to be seen at douglasducote.com because YouTube will not allow us to put it up. They'd shut us down in a second because, well, I'll just tell you this much. Some of it's graphic, and if you plan to watch it, just know that in advance. And I'm sure Dustin will put some kind of warning out there to let everybody know that that particular video is going to show you something that typically you only see if you're in law enforcement or you're a combat veteran. Let's put it that way. Thanks for everybody that tuned in tonight. Please share this and all of our videos with everyone on social media, with your family and friends. Let them know about douglasducote.com. Let them know that we can really, really appreciate their support. We don't have big corporate sponsors for a reason. And that is, we don't want them telling us what we can and cannot say or show you. And you deserve the God's honest truth. We're not going to candy coat it. We're going to tell you exactly what is going on. So, in closing, please say a prayer for our men and women serving the United States military, our veterans, our law enforcement officers, first responders, their families, our angel families, our Blue and Gold Star families, our president, and our country. God bless America, and God bless each of you. Thank you so much. I'm Douglas Ducote, and for now, I'm out.
That area.
Right.
But everything is run through that cartel.
Do you see the cartel working with Muslims, working with Middle Easterns, training them? I've heard through the grapevine.
I've heard of it. I haven't. I mean, I don't know what goes on over there, but I don't doubt it because the governing system over there is the almighty dollar.
Yeah.
And whoever's paying, they don't have any allegiance to us.
I hear what they do is they give them a crash course in Spanish.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. 20 foot away, a Middle Eastern could pass for, a Central American, and they teach them just enough Spanish, a week's worth of Spanish.
Mm-hmm.
They come over with money, so they teach them a week's worth of Spanish, and then they inject them into a group that's going over.
Yeah, and they can get by.
And they can get by with it. They speak just barely enough Spanish to act stupid, and then they get in with the group, and they write country of origin. They write Honduras and Nicaragua.
And they can even go a little farther and just teach them a little Portuguese and say they're Brazilian. Because I wouldn't be able to break them in Spanish.
Right.
But, with the Portuguese, I mean, how the hell do I know you speak
Unless
Portuguese or not? Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's, these guys are very sophisticated. And unlike us, they don't have a budget.
Right.
They
have big budget.
No, they don't have budget constraints like we do.
Right.
They're able to work, do what they got to do. They have people on our side, the people on their side. It's a very involved process, and they're very good at what they do. I mean, we know a lot of people from the Middle East are coming over because we find it in the pocket trash we find on the landings and stuff. We'll see it in the clothing tags. If it's written in obviously a different language. I mean, anything can say made in China,
Arabic,
but if it's written in Arabic, obviously,
Not a lot of stuff says made in Saudi
Yeah,
Arabia.
and especially if it's written in Arabic or whatever, or the passports or discarded receipts, you can tell a lot from the
prayer mats, Korans.
We have seen some prayer mats. I don't think we've seen any Korans, but we haven't seen a lot of it. But we have seen it,
Right.
And I think that's the thing is, I had a reporter ask me one time. She said, "Well, it's proven that only in the past 4 years we've only apprehended 12 known terrorists coming in the country." And I told her, I said, "Well, I mean, how many do you want? Isn't one just too many? One can give you a really bad day.
Yeah.
I mean, 12 is a nightmare. So I mean."
Right.
Let's get back to the original question where the college, where I was looking at the topographical map, and there's a big gap. I'm going on the map. Why is there a big gap? The college is right there, so we went down and investigated. We drove right down to the Rio Grande from the college, from the main road, right down past the college maintenance building and the ROTC building of UT, and right to the Rio Grande, a nice road, gravel road, mowed fields, right to the Rio Grande. There's no fence, there's no border, there's no gates on the. Why is that?
In that area and some other areas close by, even some areas on this side of town, we've had a lot of pushback from the local, whether it be the landowner or the university, not wanting us to infringe on their property or infringe on their rights. So everything gets tied up in a court case, and then ultimately gets bypassed. And so with that one, I know in that area they had a lot of problems with the university about putting it in certain areas.
So basically the university tells you to pack sand about building any kind of wall. They said nothing?
I mean, within reason. If the government wants it, ultimately they're going to get it. But as we see now with what's going on just with the news the last couple of days, they're going to tie it up in some type of legal process, and it's going to take a little longer to get out there.
But the border's been there for 200 years.
Yeah.
Okay, this is nothing new. There's nothing there. There's no fence. There's no signs. There's no even signs from the Rio Grande. You're now entering the United States. The college won't even let you put up perimeter signs because I know in the fence they have property in the United States. You're entering the United States, and what are the blurb that they have on the. I don't see any of that.
Yeah.
What looks like to be the college area, maybe I want to say maybe 2-click area, that there's no signs, no fence, no anything, and someone could jump across the Rio Grande dressed like a college kid walk onto the campus and no one would know except for their shoes are wet.
Oh, and on top of that, it's probably done 10, 15, 20 times a day that happens. The other thing is, you know, I've seen things down here, you can put a sign up there, but if it's not welded in there, it's gone within the hour. You know, especially with college kids, college kids don't have any. But, yeah.
Well, thankfully, nobody's been injured, college student-wise, right?
Yeah.
Remind me about an incident that happened some time ago about the shots being fired from Mexico and landing into the university. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think there's a golf course over in that area, and there was a cartel military skirmish in Mexico, and there was some shots fired, and some were coming onto our side and hitting into the college campus area, and they had to lock down the school. It was some years back, but not too distant.
Right, but it's not uncommon even now, especially right now. Do you hear shots?
Oh yeah,
all the time. I mean,
working on the river, you'll hear them a couple times a week. You know, you're out there, and at first you're kind of like, oh crap, let's get the hell out of here. And then after a while, you just kind of look around, like, I don't see any muzzle flashes. I'll just kind of continue to eat my lunch. So you kind of get numb to it, but when you
no
see
whizzes.
Yeah, you get kind of lulled to sleep by it, but it happens quite a bit. It's very common, especially in this area. You have the Gulf cartel, you have the Zetas trying to, test them from time to time, and then the cartel's always splitting with each other, and then the military. So there's.
I, Douglas Ducote, an American patriot by the grace of God, do solemnly swear to support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America from enemies foreign and